Have you ever wondered what games you should keep or you should lose? Find out here at Purge Reviews.
The Refuge is really two games in one. You have the competitive game and the cooperative game. In this video, we're going to talk about the competitive game. In this one, you are kind of doing most of the same things, except for you're trying to meet an objective and then make a mad rush to the escape pods. And it feels more like a quick race type of game. I didn't play the first game in this series, but I have read the rules, and I feel like the competitive game is more in line with the first game. I feel like that it's just this mad scramble. You are, really your decisions come in like how to place things, how to move things to block my opponents. How can I utilize my resources in order to meet the objectives? Now, one of the downsides of this is it feels like a race game. I got to get there first. Not sure I really like that, and the whole idea of leaving your compadres behind doesn't really make an appealing theme or an appealing thing to play through. In addition, the biggest negative is each of the characters play differently. Some of them have better advantages to meet certain objectives. So if that objective comes out, you have an advantage to meet that objective and to get out quicker than me, and that's before we make any decisions in the game. Sure, but it feels like a lot of that comes from the luck of what objectives come out and maybe what character I chose, or if we're doing a random character, what I think you really should do in this game is a random character and just kind of have to deal with what you have to deal with. I feel like this was probably based on the previous game, the main game, and the cooperative one is rather tacked on. I'll talk about the cooperative in a different video, but I don't like this game very much. I don't like the competitive version of the game. Really not too much at all. It might be okay for a filler or something, like slap some stuff down and see how it works out, but I don't feel like my decisions are meaningful. And the more players you add, the more the board can change because you can move those tentacles around and blast them. So I really can't even set up a turn until it really is my turn, even though I kind of know what I want to accomplish. A lot of the game is a puzzle about getting these tentacles in certain shapes and be able to knock them out and to meet these requirements. And working as a competitive game doesn't work thematically to me. It doesn't really parlay into a fun experience, and I don't feel like I'm making meaningful decisions. And for those reasons, I do not recommend the competitive version of Refuge Terror Below. I just don't like it at all. I don't feel like we're having fun. I think it's fine. If I do like the cooperative game, which I'll go into that review, and this was just kind of tacked on, that's fine. Gives me another way to play, a little bit of an experience. You know, I can run around with the kids and kind of play that, but it's not going to be a meaningful thing that's going to be like, I need to purchase this game for. Despite the components being great, the rule book is fairly good. I enjoyed the rule book. The differences between what you do in a cooperative and competitive are minor at best. It's really more about the objectives that you're going to be doing and how to win the game versus everything being completely different. A few tweaks, but not much. So for me, based on the competitive version only, this would definitely be a purge for me. Did not enjoy this version of the game at all. Here's Refuge Terror from the Deep. We're going to look inside and see all of the components that come with it. First thing you see is a rule book. You're actually going to have two of these, one for the competitive game and one for the cooperative game. We'll take a look at these in a few minutes. You're going to get some cardboard. This will be for the competitive game that you will see that will come out. And some of that you will have here. We're going to have an art and story concept book. This probably just came with the Kickstarter version. You're going to have a board. One side will be for the competitive side, which doesn't look too different from the other side of the board, which will be the cooperative side. So a little bit of difference. Nice they went to the trouble of having both sides, and has a glossy feel to it. It almost feels like a 3D effect on it. So very nice board, one of the nicest ones I have seen. Inside here, you will see all of the miniatures. Now mine are all painted up, but I'll kind of show you the different ones. Just kind of know that yours will just come plain. So there are quite a few tentacles included, but they are not all the same. They will be a couple different shapes that you're going to see here. This is the Kraken. This is one piece, very big. As you can see, it takes up a lot of space on the board. Next, we'll take a look at each of the miniatures that come with it. the bottom here, you will see cards. You're going to get a bunch of item cards that will have artwork on it, an icon, and the power that'll be on here. So you're going to have quite a few of these that will be in the game. Every character is also going to have 3 cards that will be their specific powers or what makes them asymmetrical. So you have all of those. You're going to have a bunch of objectives. And then you have the Kraken cards, which will just have icons on it that will showcase how it moves. There are player aids for both sets of games that you're going to utilize. You're going to get a number of cardboard standees. You're going to get these pods that will be used as escape pods in some of the objectives. And you're going to get this shark that will be used in one of the objectives in the competitive mode. And it'll kind of zeep through everything there. And a number of tokens. You're also going to get some character ability cards for the first set. This is a sequel. These will be from the first game that you'll see, and these will have those cards in it there. So these will all be included. There are 18 playable cards to actually add the Refuge or Race for Survival base game. So you can match the images with their miniature. Player chooses all again the 3 starting ability cards, and you'll be able to bring everybody into this version. So you're going to get the competitive and the cooperative version of the game. So let's start with the competitive. You're going to have a picture of all of the contents that are used for it, and then you'll dive into the rules. There's a full picture of setup with numbers corresponding to where they go, etc. I always like that. Very, very nicely done. Then the objectives. Now, the 2 games pretty much play the same, but let's stick to the competitive one here. You can see everything kind of broken down. I didn't have a tremendous amount of questions about playing the game after this, and everything made a lot of sense and didn't have a lot of questions. So set the game, you're going to put the Kraken deck, shuffle that up, put it there. The objective cards for the competitive one will be put here, shuffled up, and 2 will be put out. Then you will put the Kraken in the middle of the board. You will turn over the top Kraken and move it there, and then shuffle this card back in. And that will just randomize the setup of the Kraken. Then each player would take their miniature and their 3 unique cards for that player and put it on one of the start locations, and that will be set up for that player. Each of the players will do that, and you are ready to start playing the game. Each of the pods will be randomly assigned to one of these to kind of just mix it up each time you play, and you are ready to go. The goal of the game is to be the first diver to get up to an escape pod. Doing so, you need to accomplish objectives or have a decryptor in order to accomplish that goal. On your turn, you're going to take 1 action out of a possible 4. One action you can do is simply move to an orthogonal space. So let's say the board was kind of set up right here. It is your turn. You can move to an orthogonal space and activate that location. Few rules of this is you cannot move, let's say you were here, you cannot move into a location with another diver. You may move into a location that has a tentacle. So if there was a tentacle next to you, you may move into that location. If you happen to move into the Kraken, you will be devoured and moved to the side of the board. There is a salvage card deck, which will have different items and goodies you can have in here. What's important to note is the icon on it will be utilized and then the powers that are on it. Some of the cards will require an action in order to utilize them, and some may not, like the Time Flare. But you get these when you're able. There are different ways to get salvage and what cards, and we'll come back to that. Each character will also have 3 unique cards that are unique to just them. And they all, or majority of them, require an action. So this one says eliminate all tentacles within 1 space diagonally of Vega. Eliminate all tentacles adjacent to Vega. Move a player or tentacle in front of Vega 1 space forward. So they will do different things. They also have icons in the top left corner. So what's going to be important here is the spaces on the board. The start spaces are just that. They really have no effect. The important thing about being inside of a cave is if you have a player inside of a cave and a tentacle needs to move down into that location, it cannot attack you as long as you're in the cave. You're kind of safe from the tentacles. If you move into a layer, which is one of these spaces right here, you may choose and move 1 tentacle, 1 space, orthogonally. So let's say this character was right here. He wanted to move here. He could move that guy up 1 spot. You cannot move it into a start or finish space off of the board. The other space is the whirlpool, which are these that you see located throughout the board. This allows you, if you were to move into this location, to switch spots with somebody inside of a cave. So you can just kind of take their location and free yourself up. These spots right here are tentacle spots. The tentacles will spawn on the board at these different locations. If you're up here on the Kraken spot and you happen to move onto it, the Kraken will move 1 space towards you. And that's how the Kraken will, one of the ways the Kraken will move. Now, you're also going to have these objective cards. There'll be 2 of these out at a time. When you accomplish one of these objectives, they will work as a key to get into the pod. So you can't run to the pod yet until you accomplish one of the objectives. Enter a Kraken space without any salvage cards. Eliminate 3 or more tentacles on your turn. Be the only character devoured by the Kraken when a Devour card is resolved. End your turn adjacent to 2 or more tentacles. So they'll have different things that you'll be able to accomplish on a turn in order to get the key into the pod. After you finish your turn, a Kraken card will be turned over and the following will occur. In this mode, you only do the top. You would do both in a cooperative mode, but only the top in a competitive mode. So this will move over 2 spaces, ignoring the bottom of the card. There are cards in here, which will all move, except for this card will allow him to devour everybody that is 1 space around him. Once again, the game ends when one person gets here. Either they have the crypto or they have the means of an objective and they're able to escape. So it's a race to do one of these and get out through one of the pods. Who should buy this game? If you're buying this for the competitive mode, I absolutely don't recommend this. Unless you like kind of quick playing, you don't have to have too much control. It's just kind of like a blast it out, kind of jump in. It almost feels like the arcade version. Like if you wanted like the arcade version without the story, without the simulation, without that kind of things going on. You see that a lot in sports games. You sort of like where you make 80% of your shots, or do you want the ones where the home runs come a little bit more realistically, maybe 1 a game if you're lucky, versus, you know, NBA Jam versus NBA Live. That's the best way I could put it. So if you're looking for an arcade experience, this will do it. I think it will definitely play into that. I think with more people, you end up with less control. Might work with less, but you kind of want that chaotic nature. It reminds me of the old video game Gauntlet. You just want that old chaotic nature of what's going on. You'll find it here. For me, didn't push any buttons that I wanted pressed. Purge.